Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. I am your host, Ellis, otherwise known as Trainman. And today I'm on my own here, and we've got a few important things on the docket, one of which being to continue this rail line here. Another one, let's see, we can't get any farther with this yet, although we do need to add grasses and stuff in places. What else? What else do we have to do? Some more stuff in the swamp, of course, and some more stuff maybe around here, but this, I'm hesitating to touch this area again until we have a little bit more done on the way there. So, I think it'll be mostly scenery work in here and terrain work in here, including the addition of several more tiles in the back, which has to happen. Probably at least, what would this be, 12 tiles back here? But I think it's going to be way more than that, because we've got to cover this area here. We've just got to see how much it takes. You know, something I did notice, we are in route layer. Something I did notice is we have, let me pull up my task manager just to see how everything's doing. It does a little bit better when I'm not screen sharing. So whenever I have people on for discussion topics, the game performs a little bit worse, but I didn't open the episode thing because, or I didn't open the episode because I did check the comments for this week. There wasn't anything that was a major question, I don't believe. And the only comment I think was from, I'm failing to remember his name, I believe Ice or the Blue Lion, who was the one that asked the question about the IHR and sent us off on that tangent last episode. And he just said thank you for discussing that, and he looks forward to the future, and you and I are in the same boat, buddy. I'm glad we got to talk about it. And as well, I am looking forward to the future too. There are a few episodes that I just started. Or no, there's one episode in particular that I've been working on for a little while, and I had to roll it back a couple of pages because I didn't really like where it was going, or rather, the important thing there is that I found an inconsistency that I went, oh no, I need to rewrite this. I need to make this consistent. I need to make it make a little bit more sense with the characters' motivations and the way they would react in the face of certain scenarios, which is important when you're writing, of course. You have to make your characters believable. If you have a character that you're working on and, you know, you're showing it off, or somebody's reading something and you get the, well, they wouldn't do that, right? Then you know something's wrong. And I didn't get that, but I did get reminded of a certain interaction between certain characters, the characters namely being Sally and Belle. I had neglected the fact that Belle is chasing Sally, so to speak. And that was something that made me go, oh, okay, I need to re-look at the way this episode is set up. And who's doing what in it. Because, yeah, it's important. And I was being inconsistent with that. I had forgotten about it, and so Belle wasn't acting how he would have. And yes, that means there's some romantic thing that's happening. But it's far less than you may actually think. So anyways, we have to get this track over. And right now that is particularly difficult, considering just the way everything is. Is this going downhill marginally? Alright, so what we've got to do, we've got to get a 2% grade on this. Oh. Let's put a 2%, no, not a 12%, a 2% grade on this. Starting from, okay, this segment is good, this segment is not. This is a kind of tight turn, I will admit, but it's not too tight for the VMR. The VMR is not the most well known for its long wheelbase engines. In fact, they typically, what they'll do, instead of having an engine with a long wheelbase, they will tag team several engines. They will have, a bunch of, say there's 3 or 4 RS3s that are tied onto the head of a train, then it'll reach the bottom of the grade, and they'll pull up a Mikado to the rear and another one to the front, or something like that. Alright, so this turn is too sharp. That is something that I determined that needs to be remedied. So from here, I think this is straightforward. The other thing I said, though, is I might bring it out here just to gain altitude. Like back here. But that... We're trying to get through the lowest part of the mountain, so what I will do is just adjust this slightly so we have a better radius on the turn. Which, that's still fairly tight, but I don't think that's too tight. It's like, is that tighter than the kink, which is right here? And I don't think it is. Maybe, actually. I'm sure somebody in the audience is like, that's way tighter, but I'm not seeing it. Where's the invisible line I can't cross? It's right there. Because I was gonna think, what if I go over this way instead of this way? Which I still might do, because it's an invisible line. I could cross it if I really wanted to. You'll notice that I have the UCS stream going again, because... oops. No, get rid of the grade. Because we've got nobody else on the show, so I use the music to back me up. And, you know, because I can't really talk the whole time, especially when I'm trying to think about, what am I going to do with this stretch of rail here, which is what's going through my head right now. That's a nice wide turn. Is this the way I want to get through here? I don't have this area done. I need to actually build this up before I do that. I don't want to do too much over there. I do want to do plenty over here, though. This is still, it's getting higher over here. And the thing is, I need to use the plateau tool a little bit more to prevent the bumps that are occurring, like that. Well, that's less egregious than some of them. Because it's starting to look bad. Especially higher up on the mountains when I have to sit on one position with the tool for too long. You end up with bumps that are pretty hard to fix with this tool. At least on its own. And so you know, it's important to use the other tools that we have at our disposal. The only thing I don't think I've used on this map so far is terrain tracks. Which, you know, they might have their day at some point. I'm not sure if I want to get back into them. They are time consuming. They do give a great result, but it's something that I can get basically with a more random, realistic effect using just this tool or the others. Just these two tools. Alright, so we're going to try to get down, but mostly we're going to stay at this height here. Also, I am trying my best to make the stream not too loud. I have YouTube turned down pretty much as far as it'll go. I haven't fussed in the mixer yet, which, you know, would affect things. But what height is this? It's 85. That's about where we're at. The thing is, if I'm doing this, and from here I can see the side of it, I don't want that. The thing I'd have to do is increase the height of some hills that are in between. Okay. Whoa. Oh, I was using use height. I thought I was using plateau. That's an important distinction. They used to be pretty much the same. Just in the way they operated and in the result you got. These days they are completely different. One is very gradual, the other one is instant. Almost always. I wonder if I can get away with putting a little river through here. I'm just hilling this area up right now. I'm not 100% on what I'm going to do with it, but I'm just hilling it up. Actually, here's what I'll do. The thing is, the hills look so much better than the valleys. They end up looking better. The valleys, I think, are better done with the plateau tool. But this is a quick and dirty way to get this valley out of the way. Alright, let's do this. Yeah, that way we have a drainage point for that plateau, because I'm slowly and not so subtly turning it into a basin. Just because I'm in the make hills mode, and I'm gonna be in this mode for God knows how long. And so I'm just used to going in there with the increase height tool and just going crazy. The other thing I need to do is prevent this from being dead flat. Yeah, at least as best I can to make it look reasonable. I think we're getting there. I think this is a good, you know, quasi-flat looking area. With just the little adjustment that I just did. Sometimes it's the little thing that your eyes are drawn to that makes you go, oh, this doesn't look right. And then when you fix that little thing, there's nothing that sticks out at you about making, or, you know, that makes the area weird or unnatural seeming. You know, it's... Whenever you look at an area, if you're working on an area and you look at it and you say, oh, this looks so unnatural. First thing to do is figure out what specifically in that area is the thing that you think looks unnatural. Once you patch that, you know, once you patch that, it'll tie the whole, God damn it. It'll tie the whole room together. I've never seen somebody go through that much effort for a Big Lebowski reference. You can clap now. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so we've got this valley. It's not really prominent. And then we've got this flat section down here that I'm going to be working on. And again, so this is over the line. We're pretty much on the line. I should be adding another tile back there. But until I do, we'll just have to live with that edge being there. Yeah, I shouldn't be able to see the edge of the map, but then again, it is going to be covered in trees, so... let's see, hold on. These are still both... Except for that. Let's see. So we've got this side done. We do want to be able to get down. So what I think might be worth it is going this way, and then curving around here to get down to there. No, wrong button. Completely wrong button. I wanted to straighten that. The thing is not to just throw down splines and call it a day. You know, even the best initial placement of spline points requires you to come in and do some tweaking afterwards, because you need to straighten stuff out. Things like that. That's about as bad as the kink right there. What level is this? 84, yeah, that's about right. Alright, so 2, that should remain pretty much the same. This should not. That's going to get lowered. All of this is going to get lowered pretty severely. Holy cow. Except for that, I guess. The grading thing in the middle? 6. No. Ah, okay. Let's see how this looks. That looks pretty damn good. I will be honest. I think it looks great. The curve is still a little bit tight. I'm aware of that. But at least now, it doesn't look so unnatural. This is still very tight. That's the thing that characterizes the VMR, though, is these really tight curves. Let's just throw down Jefferson's run on here and see how it looks on this curve. Yeah, this looks far too tight. This is from an idea for Saturdays at Steamtown that we had. So, in the IHR verse, Steamtown is operated as a private railroad. It is still in government hands in a sense, and it's run by the National Park Service. But the railroad that actually uses the engines, which effectively has them on a unending sort of lease, operates as a private entity. And you know what, let's try this again with this. And they tend to take in engines from anywhere that there's a particular problem with getting that engine safe haven. Now, it did start with F. Nelson Blount's collection. So, you know, there's most of the engines, the characters that people are familiar with that, you know, live at Steamtown in our era. Or in our world, I guess you could say. What height is this at? Because I think this is 40. Oof. I'm sure they could get to that height if they really wanted to. If the Gilson Eastern went this way and just worked up this here. But the thing is, there's not really a way down on the other side. Not an easy way. I mean, the maximum speed limit on this line for freight is something like 40 miles an hour. It's not fast. Even taking that curve at 40 is a little bit much, but yeah, okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm actually gonna move this to the edge of the embankment there. That'll give us a little bit more radius on that curve. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. It just looks a little bit strange. I kind of just want to work this, like, I want to just do it with this instead of the, this is going to be Jefferson's cut. Which I can actually name using the airport number if I wanted to. Which I think I will, as a matter of fact. There. I'm trying to make sure this track isn't hovering because it sort of is. Yeah. Okay, so that curve has been slightly realigned. It's now slightly better. The other thing was I wanted to put a nice big passing siding over here. Now, we do need more room, but the thing is, if I bring this up to, you know, let's say whatever this level is. What level is this currently? At 74. We're still pretty high above what this base height is here, which is 40 or so. Which would imply they would want to go farther inland, but they are going to come down there just a little bit. Now, let me put down the airport number so I can name this. What my number? Jefferson's Cut. I do want to sink it a little bit. Enough to hide the lettering. Okay. This Jefferson's Cut, it's currently a peak, but it's not where the helpers would cut off because it is not anywhere near the actual peak. This is relatively easy to cross, except there's this pretty heavy rise right here. They decided that this wasn't easy enough. Let me do some of this right here. Yeah, that's better. Looks slightly better. Like I said, get rid of the bumps. Get rid of the lumps. The world doesn't really look like that. In some ways it does, but it doesn't really. There we go. Alright, so at the minimum I need tiles back here. This is something that is supposed to be done. Do that. One back there, one back here, one back here, one back here. Yep, because that counts, because that cuts just over the line. And then, again, I'm definitely going to enter here, so I need these guys back here. I need more of a buffer in the back. In fact, I probably need 3 back here, just for the sake of room. And just having enough room to do that. There's going to be some sort of probably significant bridge for the VMR, but it was still easier for them to build that than it was to build this, or than it was to build Bridgicus Maximus through the swamp, because of just the amount of footings and the, you know, the depth of the swamp and the amount of ballast that they had to put in, which, if it's anything like the Great Swamp in Rhode Island, which the Stonington Line, I believe it was called, had trouble with way back in the 1800s when they were first building railroads in New England. 70 vertical feet of ballast. So you're dumping ballast into the water until you basically filled in an invisible pit 70 feet deep, and then you finally have something to lay the track on. Finally. It's so much. It's so much. It's a lot of material to put in there. And to that point, when they were building the railroad, also I forgot, I was going on a tangent about Steamtown and Jefferson's Run. I'll talk about that again. The fledgling railroad at that point had to build about 48 miles of track. I believe it was 44 miles of track in total. And on average, they averaged about a mile. Let's see, it took them 4 years to finish this. So they averaged about a mile every month of work. And it wasn't for lack of work. They, like I said, the work that was put into it, in order to get a rail bed, was so incredible. It was just so much work that, based on that fact that it took them 4 years to go 44 miles or so, you could say, because the rate of laying rail was significantly less, they encountered more difficulties than the Transcontinental Railroad. I hope I'm getting that right. There was definitely an absurd amount of time spent building that railroad. I used to keep with me for things like this. I used to have the Railroads of Rhode Island book on hand, but that's at home. I'm here at RPI. By the way, I will be leaving after I finish this video, or well, I'm making this video on a Wednesday, and once I'm done with this video, I'm going to let it process. I'm probably going to go to sleep. When I wake up, I'm going to make Zombie Train. I'm going to set that to process, and then I'm going to hit the road and get the hell out of here. Because what's happening now, or what's about to happen, is spring break. And so I am going to go home. I'm not going to be with my computer for a week. There are not going to be videos for a week. When I come back, the first thing you guys are probably going to get is a Terminus podcast. Although I may still post... I may still post the building podcast if I have the opportunity to while I'm there. I'll still be on the Minecraft server for those of you that play on there. For those of you that don't, you can find the IP in most of the building podcast episodes, although it's not exactly evident sometimes. But sometimes I'll just show it if I have to log out and back in. It's not like I post it all the time. But the thing is, that is a public server. You can get on there, you can, do whatever you want within the confines of the rules, of which there are... The system of rules is a little bit complex, but the rules themselves are fairly straightforward. It's your fairly typical, don't steal anything, don't kill someone for no reason, don't burn somebody's house down, that kind of thing. There are certain areas of the map that are designated as towns, and you can set one up with your buddies if you want to, by just putting up some poles and some signs, and then putting where the town is up on a board. We have a physical board of all the towns and their locations. So, you can do that. You can build a town, and then you can have that area protected just the same as the other towns. And if you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's pretty much no holds barred. You can do whatever you want in what's dubbed the wilderness, which is most of the map. Unless you're in a town, it's the wilderness. I want to create a way down from here, because we just created a nice basin. Yes, the water has eroded this. Erosion, suckers. Well, yeah, I'll still be doing that, but that's pretty much all I'm going to be doing, all I'm going to be playing. Because I'll be having my laptop and not this thing. Which, my laptop is far less capable, and it's honestly, it's kind of on death's door. It's been through a lot in 4 years of college. And it's about had enough. And I'm probably going to retire it straight away when I graduate, except for riding maybe when I'm on my way to work on the train, because it is a long commute. I've done it before with the company I'm going to be working with for my foreseeable future. And other than that, yeah, I'm just going to set it aside pretty much and look for a new one probably. At some point I will get another laptop, although it's not like I do that much with my laptop. That's the thing. It sort of is set aside. Oh, hold on. Does somebody want me for something? Sorry. It was not for me, but there was a message. Okay. So we're probably going to try and thread the needle through here. The thing is, I want to keep this relatively level, this area that we're working with. And this height 75, and yeah, we're slowly descending over here. And by slowly, I mean it's not that slow. It's not slow enough, that's for sure. So what we'll do is we'll actually do this. You know, the perspective can really mess with you with these, because you think you're building something nice and flat, and it's actually on a really canted angle, or just the opposite, where you think you're building, you know, a hillside, and you look back and it's like, oh, it's flat. I've raised everything about the same. I did try to use terrain tracks for something, I do recall. But this is supposed to be a relatively flat area. I do need to deal with this edge here, as usual. What does it look like? This does not look flat. This looks far too high, actually. So let's see, what is the gradient from here to there? Okay, that doesn't help, actually. Oh, it's a 1% grade. Oh, that's actually pretty good. It's not really what I want for a siding. Siding on a 1% grade. Also, I'd rather it be like a mile long or so. Although I could have it from, like, here back. To go that way is to go downhill. I don't want to go downhill, I want to go flattish. Whoops. Okay, now it's point A1. The thing is, we're creating one with a big divot in the middle. That's not what I want. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise all this using a height that I stole from there. Now I want to go pretty much this way.
Everything changes.
So, what else? I do want to test this out, but it's not going to happen on camera. At least not today. So we've got the trestle, then we've got a sharp turn. We've got some really sharp turns over here. Including, yeah, these two are pretty sharp, this S-curve is. This has been widened. But yeah, we do have to continue this way. So what was I saying about Jefferson's run? One of the brilliant things that we devised that probably will happen in a future episode of the Chronicles is that... actually, that isn't relevant here. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Because I'm thinking about... So I had a momentary thought, which that's pretty rare of me. But I just had sort of a vision, because I've been listening... I don't quite know why, but I've been listening to the Polar Express soundtrack. So, I mean, honestly, it's not bad. I don't know what happened, where I just started listening to it in the middle of March. Or at the beginning of March, you know, cut me a break. But I then was thinking about the Polar Express, and I was thinking about Saturdays in Steamtown, and I was thinking about the characters that we have, including Blount, and the others, including Jefferson, who is 3713. Jefferson is kind of a hard knocks guy. He's very straightforward. He doesn't like goofing around necessarily, but he is prideful. His complete antithesis, his opposite, his nemesis, as she calls it, is Nicole, who is... which one? She is 2317. And, yeah, she's a goofball, and she just likes pushing his buttons and, you know, getting him frustrated or whatever. And also, she just loves to show off and is bombastic. And, you know, sort of like a Sally, but without the flirtariousness and without the self-centeredness. It's sort of if you mixed the personalities of Chris and Sally a little bit. You know, she's a sarcastic son of a gun. But anyways, Blount, being Blount, loves to be sort of the peaceful, you know, just set some time aside to do this and talk about things and whatever. And when Christmas comes around, Blount is the go-to, especially because he has a relatively soothing voice and stuff like that, to read to kids. Because they'll put on a program at the Steamtown Roundhouse. They'll bring, you know, kids in, or they'll bring him up to there's some other buildings that we co-opted for the sake of Steamtown in this alternate reality, which serve as a headquarters for the National Park Service, at least regionally. And you know, they'll bring him into an area in that building, or they'll bring him just into the Roundhouse, which is probably where this would take place, or into any place that's indoor and there's enough room that, you know, Blount can pull in, he can sit under a smoke jack, and he can read aloud to kids. And so what he's doing is they have this thing where they bring the kids in, and they sit them all down, and one of them gets to sit up on Blount's pilot and turn the pages for him, because Blount reads Polar Express aloud to all these kids. And it's adorable in my head. And I told Shelby, who's the voice actor for Sam in the Iron Horseman Chronicles, and she just about died. She thought it was adorable. And so I'm picturing, you know, he reads this, and he goes, alright, turn the page, please. He's talking to the kids. And he's just doing, you know, he does his job, and it's like, alright, that's done. Alright, kids, you ready to go for the ride? And so they have a whole train ride set up. You know, they have the Polar Express, they have their version, and they head out over the Nicholson Viaduct, the Tunkanuck, and, you know, up that way. Or actually, because that isn't explicitly owned by them, I don't think, in this. No, that's I think still CP, or, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember how we set that up. Uh, Either that or it's Conrail. Still. Because in the Iron Jarverse, Conrail survives a whole lot longer. Either Conrail or NS or CP. It's one of those. I forget. We wrote it down. But the thing is, the DNH is still a entity in this case, and is something that Steamtown deals with. But the DNH has dialed it back, runs the line to Binghamton from the colony area, from my area, and I believe CP has the line from Binghamton down, or maybe NS has it. Again, some other major player has that, not just a regional power. And so they come into Steamtown that way. And Steamtown, the railroad that runs Steamtown, is actually runs the grade over Ararat Summit. And so they run an excursion out that way. Or they plan to, and so they bring the kids outside, and Jefferson pulls up with this string of coaches that are done up to look, Polar Express-y, sort of regal, He's proud of this, he's very prideful. And it's like, welcome aboard, get ready for your ride to the North Pole, and then you hear this, this whistle blaring, and Nicole comes alongside with a string of coaches that's got like Christmas lights all over them, and they're painted all wacky with just random trees. They've got ornaments hanging from some of the windows. Maybe one of them has an actual evergreen tree strapped to the roof, because why not? But yeah, mainly they're brightly lit. They've got lights all over them and stuff like that. And she's blowing the whistle, and the speakers in all the coaches are blasting. Rockin' on Top of the World from the Polar Express when they're leaving the North Pole. It's the Steven Tyler Elf, which is one of the best bits in the movie. And as she just rolls up, and Jefferson's just like, really? This is what you're gonna do on Christmas? It's like, Merry Christmas! You guys are ready to go to the North Pole? Get on! And they have this little back and forth, and the kids, half of them get on one train, half of them get on the other. I don't know. That's where it was in my head, just the image of Nicole rolling up with this train decked out in Christmas lights and ornaments and all sorts of other crazy holiday memorabilia. They've got, Santa's sleigh strapped to one of the cars. I don't know. Or maybe it's just tied in behind the rest of the train. It's just bouncing along the ground with some wooden sledge that they just managed to put together and paint red. Maybe they've got even, bells hanging from the sides of the coaches. I don't know, that could be fun. Yeah. It started with the image of Blount reading to the kids. Which was, it's such a nice image in my head. But yeah, the whole dynamic at Steamtown is something we have to work out. There are a lot of engines there, and the thing is, we're not being as picky and choosy as we were when we were designing the Iron Horseman Chronicles, because when we were designing IHC, there were a lot of us, and we were like, oh, we want this engine, we want this engine, we want this engine. It's mostly just Chris and I, and we have a generally, equivocal idea about what we can save and what we can't, and what would be reasonable to have. We've certainly overstepped a little bit, or we've certainly gone a little bit nuts, but we try to back it up as best we could and give a reason for being. One of the important things is over that trackage with trackage rights from the Delaware and Hudson. They run a daily train called the Susquehanna that goes from Scranton, which is the station in the bottom floors of the Radisson, to Schenectady, where it interchanges with Amtrak, There were some other ideas that I was throwing around where you could have a train that continues on even to Montreal on DNH trackage, which would make sense, like hypothetically. But Amtrak runs the Adirondack up that way. It's not, it's not like it's an untouched area. It could make sense to have that run-through connection, maybe only on a weekend. But I was sort of experimenting with, okay, how far can I send passenger trains? But yeah. The whole timeline is, originally Conrail, in our universe, Conrail sold the DNH, the line from Scranton to Binghamton, so that they could abandon the line north of Carbondale, which is over Ararat Summit. Ararat Summit is a particularly difficult and relatively infamous grade, which it's not particularly steep. It's only about 1.5% in one direction, 1.7 in the other, but it's, upwards of 15 miles of it. And, that's a long, long way to go uphill. And so it was difficult for long trains. You'd have trains with 3 or 4 or 5 challengers on them. That would be the motive power for that, that kind of running. And that's the, in our universe, Conrail did not sell. The DNH hung on to that for as long as they could. Eventually wanted to abandon it, was not allowed to, and wanted to abandon it, was not allowed to abandon it, because there had to be some sort of competition. That was what it was deemed, because after Conrail there wasn't much in the area. And so following that, the DNH didn't really, they were having a very difficult time getting their money's worth out of it, doing anything with it useful at all. And their solution was, okay, we've got to find somebody to pawn this thing off on. Which it ends up getting pawned off on Steamtown, because they say, oh, we can run that, we can try it, and they do. It's not, they don't make money hand over fist, but they make enough so that with the subsidy they're getting from being sort of a home to endangered locomotives, which, like I said, are locomotives whose contract plans have fallen through, and they should not be scrapped because they do not have no contract, but the contract they have is not enough to keep them safe, or something of that sort. They get handed off to Steamtown for a time. It's sort of like foster care for locomotives, I guess is the right word. While they find it a new home, it goes to Steamtown. And the reason that that's that way is because there was a fairly high-profile case in which a locomotive was bound for a museum, and the deal faltered slightly. It wasn't revoked. There wasn't an outright problem with it, but there was enough of a problem that they couldn't get the engine to a safe place in time, and it was scrapped. So, due to that, the Steamtown Foundation, in exchange for subsidy and money to rebuild the Scranton roundhouses, or the roundhouse and stuff like that, they were handed, they said, you can handle this. If you can take care of this, we will give you what you need to stay afloat. And, for the most part, it works fine. The Steamtown Foundation and the National Park Service are the guys who technically own the engines, or actually operate, actually deal with the contracts for them, but the engines operate on tracks owned by Steamtown, which is just the name of the railroad, which we do need, there is a plan to find to get a better name for it, I guess, which we could just take, Delaware-Lackawanna, I believe, is the railroad that runs through there right now. But we decided not to because the original thing was, okay, let's get rid of the Delaware Lackawanna. Let's have them do this. The motive power for the Susquehanna, though, it is rare to see a steam engine interfacing with Amtrak, and that isn't what happens on the Susquehanna most of the time. The 3 Alco PAs that the Delaware and Hudson ran, well, what do they have? They had 3 or 4, but we ended up with, the Steamtown Foundation ended up with 3 of them in the end, as part of the deal for Ararat. 3 of them in the set of coaches that they were using for excursion service. And that's the set that's used for the Susquehanna. They also, they operate Ararats, which means they have the helper roundhouse at Carbondale. They are also in charge, partially, of upkeep of facilities in Oneonta, which is where technically their right-of-way ends, even though they merge with the D&H a little bit south of there. But a freight train that Steamtown carries will normally go from, some point south, where they interface with, I believe, Norfolk Southern, and someplace, and through Steamtown over Ararat, or, through Scranton over Ararat to Oneonta, where it'll be handed off to the Delaware and Hudson. Yeah, so it can't be NS, it would probably be CP that owns the line south of there, which makes sense because they wouldn't have gotten the chance to sell it yet. They probably would have gotten it directly from Conrail, though, instead of the D&H. Because again, the D&H never had control of that line in our universe, the line from Binghamton down to Scranton, because Conrail didn't want to sell it. Alright, let's see, we've got 52 minutes. We've got plenty of area to do mountains up there. So we're gonna fill this in area. Fill this in area. Yeah, fill this area in. So that's that. The other thing is, okay, this is some fun stuff that we worked out, and it's gonna be a very long time before any of this ever comes to fruition. So I don't feel bad talking about it. Lee, right? Lee served in Boston for a number of years. And during that time, the reason he picked up such a thick Italian accent is not because he happened to come out of the shop like that. It's because he was already being looked at by the mob from the moment he was being built. And so he subsequently ended up working with them for his entire term in Boston, doing a smuggling operation which was bringing anthracite from mines in Pennsylvania, the mines and steelworks, and other pickup places where they had contacts, northeast through Penn Station in fake Railway Express Agency boxcars, and then north up the B&M and across the Delmerian border into places like Toronto and Montreal. So that was their big money-making operation at the time. This was very early 1900s. In 1927, Lee, who had worked his way up in the ranks, accidentally placed a fake REA boxcar on a train with its real counterpart, because the road numbers they were using were not fake road numbers, they were road numbers of other boxcars, and it was part of the job to make sure that you never had two of the same car on the train, because clearly somebody would notice that, and they did, and that led to particularly, I mean, the FBI in no small part, but particularly the Pennsylvania State Police, or not, yeah, well, the I guess it'd be state troopers, but cracking down on the mob activity, and in a not so policeman way, the FBI and the Staties in this case worked together, track down a point at which a lot of this coal was changing hands, which was the E.J. Levino Steel Company, and there was a gunfight, and a lot of people died, and from that point forward, the mob no longer did any anthracite smuggling, at least not in that quantity. It was no longer the moneymaker it once was, because people knew what to look out for, and that also sort of blew their scheme with REA boxcars for moving things out of the water. And it was 100% Lee's fault. So, Lee, at that point, is effectively told by the mob to leave and to not come back to New England ever. And in fact, not to wander on the east side of the Mississippi River. Lee did come back in 1939, very briefly, almost got killed, but escaped with the help of a certain Goodyear Zeppelin streamliner, which is why he was in love with her. And additionally, the name Levino might sound familiar to people who know the Steamtown engines very well, because E.J. Levino number 3, whose name is Levino, is at Steamtown. And so he allegedly still has mob connections, even after all that. In fact, in the IHR verse, the other E.J. Levino engine was indicted, and because of ties to the mob. And so it looks ever more likely that Levino is basically just trouble. And also, he's not a nice person. He's not a good person. He's bitter because in 1927 he was extraordinarily young when he watched all of that happen. And he knows Lee was behind it too. So he does not know Blount's connection to Lee until much later. It's not like an immediate, oh, I know. Oh, you know him, don't you? Same thing with Chris. He doesn't know. Because neither of them were in the mob. He doesn't know their names. Nobody's even quite sure where Lee went. Because for like half a year, instead of going directly to the IHR, he worked on a short line, which eventually was absorbed into the Iron Horseman, and remained in its lettering for like 20 years, something like that, because he didn't want to be spotted. Eventually, he came around though, when he figured it was safe. What else? All right, so we've got mountains rising in the back here. Alright, let's turn up the sensitivity a little bit. Alright. Oh, that's not the right thing. Oh, I can see the edge of the map, but that's okay because I'm looking at it from back here. That's incredibly important to me. You shouldn't be able to see the edge of the map sticking out anywhere. It isn't that hard to add one more tile of scenery, especially if it's distant scenery. If it's one more tile of ocean, or of just, a generic mountain or forest or You know, something like that. Easy peasy. If it's another tile of city though, you might want to think twice. Figure if there's something you can do to block line of sight. If at all possible. No, I don't think there are too many places where we're going to have that. In fact, I'm not sure how much of Gilson City is going to get built, but it's probably going to be... I'm probably not going to be skimping. It's probably going to be a lot. That area is going to be very densely populated, hopefully. It's going to be, you know, I'm going to need to look into how 50s cities were laid out. Although in the 50s, it's what we know, but it's pre-highway. We might have an interstate or two that's connecting. And I've talked about this before. You know, I want to put a couple of things in the city, including like a central artery like Boston had. Where it's a raised highway. But, yeah. I have a lot of ideas over what I want to do, including an elevated railroad, which I think could be fun. There's actually a lot of assets for that kind of thing on the DLS. Alright, good. Can't see that. I'm trying to do my best to keep this realistic, but also not make it look weird from different angles. And also not to just nitpick, because it's way in the back. We're several tiles from anything. The only reason this tile exists is because a piece of track barely cut into the area that this tile is in. No. But I think this is definitely the best way to do it, for me at least, in my opinion, because it gives you plenty of terrain to work with, and it gives you the opportunity to create line of sight blockers so you almost never see the edge of the map from where you're at if you're driving a train. But it also isn't like copious amounts of extra tiles such that you feel compelled to just make tiles with nothing in them and paint them green or something, you know, so it looks like, oh, there's just forests and trees over there, or, you know, just fields or whatever. You know, you want to make a tile, when you go to make a tile, you want to make a tile that actually has something in it, because, you know, at that point, what's the point of having it? I guess, you know, obviously it's fine if you're just building distant structures, or building a distant area where people are really only going to see the shape of the terrain, if anything. But, you know, I don't even necessarily like to base it off of, well, what are people going to see? It's, for me, it's like, okay, what would go here? You know, sometimes, yeah, you do have to ride a line with that, though. That looks, whoa, I need to stop doing that, that's for sure. It looks like a nice big peak in the distance. Yeah, so we're getting to almost the same point with this and with this. What can I do to make this flatter? Maybe move it even over here. Because I can create a hill here. In fact, I think there belongs, you know, one sort of belongs there. This area definitely is going to need something because this area has a base height here of, I think, 20-ish. No, this is the 40 base height. Okay. And this is 100 something. Yeah. So we're going to try to ride the line between these two things. And in fact, what I might do is I might even bring I might bring the 40 in, even it out with 0, and then bring the 110 in behind it and use a plateau tool so we get this cliff face that we can snake along if we want to. It'll be near the bottom of the cliff face, though. And in fact, I'm going to fill in these other tiles so I have a little bit more to look at / to work with. At least if I can draw in an edge or something, I'll know what I'm doing, where I'm working. Although I think I'll stop with this for now. What I really want to be doing right now is just adding grass and stuff. Come on, spawn in the trees. There we go. Okay, what did I want? Whoa, easy does it. Already got grass. Grass is easy, but I will want to add more of the sort of special stuff that Mason showed me last time. The other thing is, it might be worthwhile to go along and fill in another kind of grass that sort of is around the rails, because it doesn't really make sense that... No, it's not that it doesn't make sense, it's just the way the grass looks, it's not really the most conducive for being real. I don't know. If I use some other grass to push in on the edge a little bit, it might look better. That's what I'm thinking. That's what's going on in my brain. Alright, so let's do that. Yeah, I like doing the grass. I like, it needs to be ready for when I come in and put the trees over top, because other than, if I don't do it by then, I'm basically screwing myself. I'm making it a lot harder for me to actually get it done. The thing I can't do is textures like that, because pasting pastes over the textures. I mean, I could always paste down the textures first, and then go in and paste down the trees afterwards. But I'm not sure. Then I do have to trim twice. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is better or worse. Or, I'm not sure which is the better solution there. One involves 2 sets of copy pasting though, and that can be difficult to accomplish, especially with the way that trains work sometimes. Read doesn't. There we go. We've got some grass up to here now. That's good. It's good enough for now. I do want to work on this though. You see, we have to, no matter what, we have to get this all the way over here at some point. And this is our biggest project right now. Other than that, I'm just going to come in and put down trees and stuff like that. I'm thinking. I could always make this the base height for this area now. But the slope is not really steep enough.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a shooting star.
I don't think I'm gonna come down to this level. I don't know, we need to see how the terrain ends up looking. That's really my question. It's am I going to bother bringing this down to here and then bringing it back up again? Or am I going to stay relatively low in the hills over here until I have to rise again for this? Or where is it? Over here. This. Which this needs some TLC too. This area does not look good. The thing I do need to show off is the fact that you couldn't get through here otherwise, which... I don't know. I don't know. My brain is kind of fried right now because I'm thinking of so many different things and that I have to do this right, or else it will not have ever made sense that the VMR went this way instead of just following along this way. When, you know, it makes way more sense to just go along the coastline here where it's relatively flat instead of climbing all the way up to, you know, wherever this peak is, which is over 100 meters in the air, and then, you know, going that far back down. So, you know, I think I'll get rid of this. I'll just try to concentrate on staying relatively level, and that means maybe coming all the way back here. Unless coming over here allows me to be level, which means I have to create a new base height at about, you know, whatever this height is, 70 something. 74. Which means I have to sort of shore this up. Alright. So if I can box this in properly, I can have that channel separately, and then I can build this the way I want. So this is 60. That's still way too low. This is 72. That's more like what I want, but this is supposed to be a high point in this area. So we still have to come down a little bit more, or I have to build everything up again. Or further, I should say. Yeah. We already managed to get over that rise. I don't want to come down too far, and I feel like I already have. I've already dropped 30 feet, or 30 meters from where high, you know, from where we made it over the high point. Now that's a lot. That's 90 feet. That is not insignificant.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're all invited to go fucking mental on this motherfucking drop.
Oh boy.
The countdown has just begun.
So I am going to this. I'm going to bring up the sensitivity. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna fill this in. This is a new base height, but I'm gonna do the base height with the plateau tool, so it's a little bit smoother on the edges. We still have to drop another 10 meters, about 30 feet, to get to the new base height. But that's okay because I'll add some hills and stuff and make it look, you know, more or less proper. What I think I have to do, though, I think I have to bring the 110 in. I have to bring it closer to the coastline so that we end up being squeezed between this 110 shelf and this 0 estuary. And so we'll see how that goes. And again, we've already dropped another 10 or so. That's not what I want. That's not good. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this and make it look good and make it make sense. I'm far less concerned about making it look good at this point. I really do want it to make sense. You know, I'm basically building myself into what's otherwise a geographical oddity. Just because I wanted to come back and cross thing at the same point. Or, you know, cross the valley line here on the bridge. I mean, this is our chance to try and break away, although I don't really think that's going to happen. Because what we can start doing is get into a bit of a valley with a river that would lead back to here. And so I can try to get away from this. But I'm not sure how effective that's going to be or how useful. We've really just got to start building and see what happens. Okay. So, we're coming along through here. This is where we can add another thingy. Or where we can add our passing siding. And none of the grades as they are too steep. And what is this final height? 67. So yeah, we've lost another 10 meters or so. But what I can do, I can put a -1 gradient. It's still a siding on a 1%. And also we've got a pretty significant thing there where we should probably just go straight and wrap around this way. You know, we don't really have flats to work with. This area is not flat. I would love to be able to put this on, you know, a fairly flat section. We've we've got this. This is the way it is. Yeah, the goal was to get on this side of this. That's what it looks like. By the way, the track is built. And we can probably push that a little bit. Again, with this over here, we can push that idea that we had to get on this side of that valley. But it doesn't make any sense, really, because you could have just gone around there and then climbed up. But the idea is we have to make it steep enough that you can't realistically climb up. With a railroad, at least. With the road, you'll be able to. Yeah, so the road, yeah, I've got to figure out my own solution to. But I think this is the start of something. I'm going to use the plateau tool for this. Yeah, this right here, and then we could fix that divot a little bit. There we go. So, this at that height or so, that looks good. I'm doing a lot of eyeballing here. You really, you can spend so much time doing math. You've seen me do that. But, figuring out, okay, this height, this height, this height. Especially if you're going either pre-planned or you know where the track needs to go. Now, we're just trying to figure it out. So I'm doing a lot of eyeballing, as I always have been on this map. And then we'll find a real solution later. We'll give an actual consideration to, okay, how do we lay track through this? Whereas right now it's, okay, let's get something that we can lay track through. Just, we can lay track, period. It's something that is feasible at this point in time. And that makes sense for this railroad, or for this terrain, and then it'll make sense for the railroad, because you'll have terrain that the railroad had to build through, and if it's realistic terrain, then the way we build the railroad will make sense. The only thing is, we still need to justify why the railroad came up here instead of staying down there, and it wasn't just because they didn't like each other, although that may have been part of it. We know they were trying to get over this way. Uh-oh, what was that? But they decided they had to get far enough west first before actually trying to go south. Because they probably could have just gone this way. Oh yeah, I do have to build this. Now this is a rather significant embankment. But it's not actually that bad. It's just a long one. Okay. We're finding the edge of the swamp here. And I think that's actually turning out not so bad. At least from up here. We'll be able to cover all this stuff with trees. The trees will hide a lot of the imperfections in what we've done done with the land. So, yeah, the thing is, like I said, I might do the siding here. I might do it a little bit farther down. We have stretched it out a little bit far for a siding, but having a siding before this gradient starts makes sense. Which, this now is at a height of 67, so if I can keep it around 70, then I will be happy. And everyone else should be happy too. Maybe not you guys in the audience. The other thing that I'm not doing today, I'm not doing the calculations for industries. A, because the hotfix hasn't dropped, so there's no reason for me to. And B, because I need to take the industries and put them into my spreadsheet. That's something that's time consuming, that's something I need the motivation to do. And I have been swamped with that kind of work. Not just from school, but from other game-related projects as well. In fact, just earlier today on the Minecraft server, we finally apprehended somebody who had been jacking a whole load of stuff. There was a string of thefts on the server, and we managed to figure out who it was based on server logs and a number of other things. And earlier today, they came on. It was 2 people. They came on, and we apprehended them. We brought them in. We stripped them of all their stuff. We questioned them, and they immediately pled guilty, both of them. Actually, it was kind of funny because they both tried to cover up the other. One was like, "No, it wasn't. Listen, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. He gave me all this stuff." And the other one was like, "I know. No. So, well, that was the first thing that they said. Thing 2 said that, but then thing 1 said, it was all me. It wasn't his fault or anything." And then thing 2 decided to turn around and say, in contrary, in whatever the word I'm looking for is, in effect, the opposite of his previous statement, that, no, it's, I did everything, it's not him, blame me. And the first time that they said, the first time that one of them said, no, it's all me, the story's actually matched for, about 40 seconds. And I was ready to think about leniency on thing 2, but then, he came back with the same thing. And so it was like, okay, one of them might be telling the truth, but I know both of them aren't. And so, guaranteed, I have to dispense of both of them. This is not the place for leniency, because if hypothetically they were both definitely doing this, and on top of that, what if I were to ban the wrong person? And so, we nabbed them, we questioned them, they pled guilty, we had them empty all their stuff. We had previously figured out where their base was and taken all of the stuff and put it aside in order to repay the people who had gotten stolen, who had gotten things stolen from them. And, and once that was done, we just had to wait for them to come on. We asked them if they had anything in their ender chest. They said no. They hadn't really, aside from the back and forth, they hadn't blatantly lied about anything. They pled guilty, etc. So I trusted them on that. There wasn't really anything I could do about it anyways if they were lying. And the final thing was I put them in adventure mode so they couldn't break anything. I put them in a pair of jail cells, talked to them for a little bit, and then I banned them both. So that was the end of that. Hopefully we won't see any more thefts, at least not for a while. But at the very least, we know that the stuff that went on in that period of time can be attributed to other people, or isn't attributable to other people on the server at least, or at least it probably isn't. Now, see, this is what I was talking about by squeezing us. See, we've got this height, which, this comes down to 40. But what I'm doing here is I'm taking this upper height and I'm drawing it down. And I did this for some spots on the Iron Horseman route. In fact, some of my favorite looking spots, just in terms of the terrain. The only ones that had really interesting terrain. and drawing it down so you have this elongated, almost, hillside shape, which is almost guaranteed to be the right shape. It's all going to be sloped in one direction, which is what you want. And so, yeah, that said, this is a very good technique. Combining the raise height, you're doing a base height and using the plateau tool. Is this still the same level low? This is. And actually what I can do is I can have this sort of fall away and just utilize this cliffside here, which I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this cliffside all the way out. At least to... Where does the estuary end? At least to here, I guess. We can make canyons as need be. But this is how stuff is going to be when we get higher in altitude, with bigger altitude differences. Yeah. And so we want to keep this height, so I will use the use height tool, and I'm going to bring it all the way out this way. At least until the point where we lose another tile on the left there. Because I don't think we're going to be going any farther than that today, at least. But we're not going to try to mount this. We're not going to try to get on top of it. We're going to try and follow along the coast, more or less. And hopefully create a route that you can pick up a little more speed on, that's a little bit straighter. Maybe, minimize the gradients for this section. Because the other thing is built kind of janky. Looks like the Housatonic. So let's fill this in. I won't use copy-paste because copy-paste is a son of a gun. Last time, I believe I tried to use it last episode or the episode before, and it did not cooperate well at all. So I decided that I think I'm going to stick with this tool for creating this. Also, if you look on the side of the area that we're raising, it looks like a cool wood grain. Just something to note. And I'm tempted to just look and see how much we have to do, but we've just got to fill this all in. It doesn't matter how much we have to do; it's all gonna get done anyways. And that's the thing. You can scale that from the micro to the macro. It's no matter what you're doing, just keep working on it because it's got to get done anyways. You don't need to step back and figure out everything with it if you don't have like a deadline or anything. We're just going piece by piece. Some bits are going to be easier than others. Honestly, we did one of the easier bits, I think, which is along the coast, and we're going to be doing one of the harder bits, which is this, and then as this heads inland. But I don't think we're going to head this inland. I think we're going to get it across the valley line, and then just have it turn and head away. At least I think that's what it's like at the map. I will check that in just 1 second. Not that the map is an absolute reference, it's just a guideline. It's a little more guidelines than an actual rule. Although I can't click on anything because my computer said no. Actually, let me do this. Let me pull this down. Let's look at maps. You guys can't see what I'm looking at though. That's kind of unfortunate. Alright, so we've got this area now. We're going to do some different things with it. Alright, so the other thing, we need to draw this down to the edge. So that starts with the plateau tool, pulling in this general direction. We kind of have to get this other range of hills to evaporate. It needs to disappear somewhere in between. The other thing is the plateau tool is particularly good at smoothing out these ridges that tend to appear when you're merging things. In fact, it's probably the only thing that can do it. with that sort of versatility and this sort of effectiveness. Now, terrain tracks would work just fine, but at that point, you're basically overriding everything that's been done at that point. So far. So, because you're basically redoing the ridge. This, I'm working with the ridge. I have to smooth the ridge out. I don't really want 300-foot high cliffs. That's not what I'm going for. But it is sort of a facet of what I'm going for. It's having these cliffs is important. This way, this way. And it's obviously, it's not going to be flat up there. It's not going to stay flat up there. But up there is just going to be terrain work. In fact, I could probably get rid of these. Okay, so... still heading downhill here. That's too sensitive. Damn. Now let's fill that in. And that in. This. And like I said, I kind of want to cling to the wall as best as possible. Not that this is all that steep, but it's probably going to get steeper with defining where the edge of the estuary is actually going to be, and the fact that I'm probably going to be putting a river through here. I need to look at where all these channels connect. Here in particular. And then here, no, not here. Yeah, these guys don't, and this has, everyone has a defined end except for this one, which I could pretty much end there if I really wanted to, and this one, which I think this is the this is the important one. This is the one that we're probably going to turn into a canyon that we have to cross. And that's why this is so important. We can get a real nice big high bridge for the VMR crossing this canyon. But we need to actually figure out what that looks like first, as usual. Oh, you know what? Turn the sensitivity back up. Alright, there we go. So I've started to give the little divot that tells me that there's going to be a canyon there. And now I can do this, and I can start doing the same thing. I'm pulling the mountain out, but what I'm really doing is I'm pulling the valley in. Which, you know, again, the advantage of this, the faster you move the cursor, the lighter the slope is going to be. So I can do that and go fairly slow, and I can make this hard edge, or I can do this and do very minute changes without really changing the tool at all, and without even changing the sensitivity. It's all about the way you work the brush. You know, as with most things like this, doing circles helps. You know, you don't want to have the brush concentrated in one spot. You don't want to have, you don't want to be doing too much in one area. But moving the brush in small circles lets you sort of distribute what you're doing without having to do a lot of spam clicking, repeat clicking. Although that does, that is something you can and will do. That's the thing. I need to draw the canyon into the rock, into the plateau, and give it some rounded edges by working up there. And it's probably going to be rocky, so I'll come back here and do something with a much tighter brush. Although that said, it is probably going to be a relatively small stream. It's not like the stream is feeding the estuary. It's not like the stream is giving the swamp all of its water. The water is coming mostly from the ocean. It's brackish because of all these smaller feeds that are coming from streams like this one. It's going to be more like Hutton's Kill around here, or whatever that's called. That's, you know, it's a fairly small river, but it has a fairly good-sized gorge that belongs to it. And we'll see how it looks when we're closer to being done, and what we can change and what we should change. Thing is that these edges are much too broad right now. That is better. The thing that I decided not to get rid of these tiles in the back right away is the fact that with this gorge, I'm probably going to be building up to them, and when you cross it, you're going to be able to see down it. And so I want to be able to see a good distance along the gorge. Now, to get back to what I started talking about, the tangent that I got on with Steamtown, and I can talk about this all day, but specifically with Jefferson's Run. Because the power for the Susquehanna is usually PAs. It is still rare to see a steam engine outside of the Steamtown track. They connect, I believe, with the RNN somewhere nearby, which occasionally will field its own engines, but mostly is, a diesel road, and for the most part handles its own things and doesn't need Steamtown's help. It just, stuff gets taken to it and it gets handed off, and that's that. The thing that does occasionally happen, however, rarely, very rarely, there will be a late night freight or something of that sort that has to be sent out to, all the way to Schenectady. And, and sometimes beyond, but the steamers will virtually never go past Schenectady. That is too far away from where they can get service. And that said, there was one instance where there were, 15 cars of express cargo that had come in late, and that needed to be, they needed to be in Montreal by morning. And Canadian Pacific, D&H could take it up in the morning, but the only place they could take it from was would be where it was supposed to be to get handed off, which was up in I keep almost calling it Syracuse, up in Schenectady. And so late at night, on a chilly November night, Jefferson being one of the last engines running that night, just fluke, took a train of express cargo all the way up over Ararat with a little bit of help, I believe, and out to Oneonta, where they found no replacement. Originally it was, okay, just get this to Oneonta and call it a day. They get to Oneonta and there's no crews and no engines available for this, and it's too late in the evening. The D&H is running on what they call emergency dispatch, which is just, if something else is going on that needs dispatching on the system. It's mostly done for the folks at Steamtown and stuff like that. They're the engines that they share, the railroads that they share trackage with. I'm having some fun with this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring this up to a higher level back here. with a bit of a waterfall. And we will have to string water up there, so that's going to be another problem. I've got totally carried away with this, haven't I? The other thing is, so now I need to finish drawing the hill out. And the thing is, I need to draw out the hill far enough that it makes sense that you just can't get up it. And so that means I need to draw it all the way out to here somewhere. And the thing I would want to do actually is to have some sort of hill right here, but there's not going to be anything that significant right there in the middle of an estuary. It's just going to be this. You know, it's so imposing that basically the surveyors just said, no, you're not doing that. Find a different way around. You know, I'm trying not to make it... I've spent so much time in Minecraft lately, I'm trying not to make it look Minecrafty, because that's not real. That's not realistic generation at all of what the world looks like. There are plenty of things out there that make Minecraft try to look like that, but no. Alright, this way. This way. I'm treating it not like a plateau tool right now. I'm not doing a very good job of drawing the mountain out. I'm doing sort of the circular strokes that's good for, or that's better for just raising and lowering. Okay. I don't think you're gonna build a railroad line up that anytime soon. The question is, what sort of bridge can I put across this? Because the answer is not a small one. Although the span is not that absurd, it is still, you know, it is still quite a bridge. Let's see, how do I have... I don't think the RRTK stuff stands up, but I can try it. Actually, you know what? That's only a 2-span bridge for RRTK stuff. That is awesome. Yeah, this is probably going to look very similar to the other one, just in a steeper gorge then. Yeah, I'm just going to raise this hill a little bit so I sort of remind myself that yes, this is supposed to be higher up here. I mean, the VMR is still crazy for attempting this. But yeah, of course they are. Like the Rutland water is the VMR's kryptonite. They want to stay as far away from it as possible. Although, unlike the Rutland, they actually do stay as far away from it as possible. The Rutland is particularly bad at just, oh, we'll just build a, you know, thingy. We'll sort of build where we want to build. It's like, you sure it's a great idea, guys? You sure that's the smartest decision? Because I'm not. I think we need to go, I need to stop doing this. I need to turn that off. Get rid of that gradient. Get out of here. This is actually fairly flat. I don't think this is too bad. Hold on, can I cross? What does it look like if I cross here? That's 5%. Let's... Because it's too steep? Yeah. This is a lot longer of a bridge than what I originally just showed. But the thing is, it's still, you know, a relatively low gradient, even though it is a very high bridge. And it still might be doable with certain splines. I'm going to do this. Alright, over here. There. Now what is the height of this? 73, so we've gained height again. That's not a bad thing. Wait, did I catch this? Oh, that's a 3-point, whatever. Alright, and then that. Who would have thought forcing it to be flat is so much work? How about just a 1% here? Alright, that works. Now we have a nice flat section through the valley here. The only difficulty is it's all hovering over the valley floor. So I've got to fix that, probably by pushing it a little bit more into the hillside here, and then crossing the valley at a better location. And then worrying about this, which this is something else. We really do need a serious span for this, unless what we just want to do is move the span to like here. You know, and burrow this in a lot more. Which that still isn't crazy of a grade. It's just a lot of cut. Which, yeah, let me look how much cut that is. Actually, that's not all that bad. That is not that bad. It does not look bad. You know, it's just a fairly deep cut. And then we have this, which is a much shorter span. It's still not great, but we have this much shorter span, and then probably a short tunnel on this side. We'll start adding other spline points when we get farther along. Doing that. And then we're still embedded in the hillside here. This already has a bit of work done on it, but I think I'll just sort of ignore that for now. And then I'll add another spline point so that we can straighten that out so we can get the good curve straight curve going on, or straight curve straight, depending on how you want to measure it.
Like a Hellcat.
Although I could probably cross over here and get even better, you know, probably do even better for myself. Basically something like that, which that is nice and long and straight. But the thing is, I'm not sure if it actually works at all. Grab the lower one, apply it there. No, because that's in the air. That is straight up in the air. It's not. It doesn't even really make sense. The other thing would be to cross over here if I go farther along the canyon, and then you get a shorter bridge. Yeah, it's really quick. I mean, again, I could always just put a trestle up. That's what would make sense here. So let's see, with a couple more spline points and a little bit of straightening, if we can get it looking like we could put a trestle there and make it decent. Alright, this one is supposed to be a straight section, so we do need another spline point here. Probably going to want to push this one back just to give us more radius of curvature, or more accurately get rid of it. I guess if we bring this out to here-ish, what happens if... What are the gradients currently? 0, 1, they're pretty damn flat. So, if I put in a ruling grade of 0.2 for this, although I set this up so that, oh no, I'm stupid. So that's straight. I should have another spline point here so that I can have a straight trestle. Although, whoever said trestles have to be straight, eh? The answer is nobody. That's who. The thing is, in trains, the trestles don't like to not be straight. It's a little bit difficult to get a trestle with a bend in it to actually cooperate. Let's see, so what are the grades we've got right now? Again, pretty flat except for here, and we've got 1.39. What can I do to get this to be just 1? Like that. Ah! That actually makes everything within well within acceptable margins, although we don't have a ruling grade, we just have a bunch of different independent gradients, so... That is a little bit more extreme of a cut, however. This is one of the most subtle curves I've ever seen on any railroad ever. I mean, I guess it's fine. There's no reason to not have it. It's just like, wow, that's very not curved. The other thing, I would rather have a ruling grade over this section where it's just the same steady grade over the whole thing instead of, you know, it's sort of like this and also sort of like this and also sort of like this. You know, again, if we do 0.2, I'm wondering what'll happen. Yeah, that works. And even this, right? Yeah, this is the easy part. This is where I'd be putting a passing siding. The other thing I want to do, I do want to build I want to put a spline point there. Straighten this. Oh, there it is. It's straightened. This side is not straight. That's okay, because we already did the embankment for that. And then that. And then the other part is to do it like this. Or add that, straighten it. We're already over time. Add that. And then add like this. So then we just have this to deal with. That's a bridge. That's a serious bridge. Alright, the other thing is I do want to sort of adjust this slightly. There we go. And we'll have the passing siding somewhere around here. I mean, we could double track the trestle if need be, but somewhere between Jefferson's Cut and this bridge. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Train Man out.